Domain tools help security analysts turn threat data into threat intelligence. They take indicators from your network, including domains and IP addresses, and connect them with nearly every active domain on the internet. Those connections drive risk assessments, help profile attackers, guide online fraud investigations, and map cyber activity to attacker infrastructure. Fortune 1000 companies, global government agencies, and leading security solutions vendors use the Domain Tools platform as a critical ingredient in their threat investigations and proactive defenses. For more information, visit securityweekly.com/domain tools. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. It's the security news for this week. Make sure you check out our sponsor, Recorded Future. That's right, daily updates to your email on all things threat intelligence, which, if you're doing threat intelligence, probably something that you want. Their research team is top-notch. You can go to recordedfuture.com/security weekly to get more. Active Countermeasures as well is our sponsor. We mentioned them in Job's technical segment. We're talking about that cat and mouse game that you play, detecting backdoors in your environment and communications that shouldn't be there. Active Countermeasures can help you with that with AI Hunter. You can go to securityweekly.com/ACM to find out more, including technical segments with one of my teachers, none other than Chris Brenton. And that brings us to the security news for this week, and it's with a heavy heart that we talk about DerbyCon. Just like a moment of silence. It's very sad. It's very sad.
It was.
We love you, Dave, man. I mean,
we do. I mean, Dave and everyone who's been involved with DerbyCon, I have to say, has been nothing but nice to me and the entire Security Weekly family. I mean, nice is even an understatement. They've, since day one, just been so accommodating, wanting to help the community, just in invoking the Security Weekly spirit of helping people. I was just glad we could be a part of it. And I guess, all good things must come to an end. So, and there you have it.
I just, the part that really bothers me, and we're going to have to get over it, I suppose, collectively, is that a minority of individuals doing the wrong thing spoils it for everybody. But it's one of those life lessons, that has happened over and over and over again. I wish it didn't happen, but that's the way it goes sometimes.
There was a great article that Amanda Berlin posted to Facebook that chronicles all of the kind of journey that we've been on in this particular issue, Joff, that I'm glad you brought up. And, it talks about some of the early codes of conduct and incidents that happened and how they were handled. And there is a group of people that are just not happy ever, in my assessment, with some of the ways in which conferences handle people, and conferences being a place where a lot of people get together that have a lot of different backgrounds, and there's just a lot of things going on, and it's a party atmosphere. And I mean, hats off to conferences. That's a lot to manage. You also, you don't want to see anyone acting like a dick.
Right.
And so it's a very difficult balance. I know many of us at Security Week would be the first ones to speak up and take action when we see or hear about that type of behavior. But conferences have a really tough time, not just policing it, which some of it's not necessarily their responsibility. It falls on the venue, it falls on law enforcement. But on the other side too, some people don't know how to behave.
Yeah.
And there's I tell my kids all the time, there's bad people in the world, and that kind of thing is going to happen. So it's very unfortunate. There's a small group, as Joff said, that it's difficult to strike that balance between you're having a conference, there's people getting together, there's going to be bad actors, much like we have on the internet. There's going to be bad actors. How do we handle it? And for some conferences, it's gotten too much, and I respect that. And I think it goes back to what Dave said is, when it stopped being fun is when they would stop. And because of all of the logistics and all of the things happening with conferences, it's not fun for them anymore.
I mean, it gets to really one, it grows, so you get out of a community and you get into a bigger community, and that makes things harder.
Addressable audience, right?
Yeah,
it grows.
Suddenly you've got not just the people coming, but you've got many, many other people. It becomes a thing, and then you get people that don't know how to behave, and it's tough. I've run conferences, and it's really tough because you got people wanting to have fun.
Yeah.
And
in a good way.
in a good way, but you got people that define fun in some other way, and it's really tough as the conference organizer to say, you can't do that, but you can do this.
Right.
And I say, well, gee, I want to drink tequila and go crazy and take my clothes off, and that's my idea of a good time. And somebody else says that's offensive. And it's tough for the conference coordinators to decide where do you draw these lines? And I mean, there's obvious stuff that nobody should be doing, but even then, obviously somebody thinks it's okay. As stupid as that may be, they still do it. So it's really tough when you're running things to say, you can't do that. I don't want to be mom and dad. I mean, I want to have fun too. So I think,
well, and you personally may be okay with someone drinking tequila and streaking through the lobby. You may think whatever, but other people that look at that are going to have very different reactions, right? Some people are going to be okay. Some people are going to have mixed feelings about it. Some people are going to complain. Some people are going to complain very, very loudly.
Regardless.
Yeah, regardless, right?
Yeah, and my experience with conferences was somebody's going to complain even if none of that happens. They're going to complain that that they shouldn't have had potted plants in the lobby because they don't like potted plants, and you're going to get that too. And then you get to deal with all that, and it's so much fun.
Yes.
It's like
not fun though.
Because I ran a conference once and people beat on my door just like all the time. It was just like, oh, this, and it's too cold in my room, and they won't do anything about it. And I don't like the pool, and and
it's like some of the venue things fall on you as the conference organizer.
Everything falls on you because and then you get the blame if it doesn't work, and then you got people writing blog entries saying this conference sucks and they wouldn't do this, and the pool was too cold, the pool was too warm, and there was a guy naked, and and it's just like,
well, and conferences are taking responsibility for activities that are being performed or done by people who are attending the conference, but not even in the conference venue. Like there was I've seen in the past, there was a party and it was off-site from the conference, and things happened and people were upset, whatever the case may be, and that all funnels back up to the conference organizer.
Yep.
Look, the thing that that I keep coming back to though is firstly that the whole concept of common sense seems to not be common anymore, which is kind of a shame. But secondly, look, if you're offended, just a general guideline to people. I was taught when I grew up, walk away. Just walk away. You have the physicality aspect. You don't have to stay. And I think it's just a shame that a small number of individuals take it on themselves to get so highly offended that they feel like they need to tear stuff down. And I'm disappointed.
Yeah, if you're offended, I agree with Geoff. If you're offended, walk away. Don't come to the conference. Go to a different area of the conference. Remove yourself from the situation. But don't. And it depends on what that situation is.
I am not. Let me just finish that with, I am not condoning behavior that is verging on very inappropriate, verging on illegal. I don't condone that behavior.
Listen,
you as an individual have the ability to walk away.
But I am going to say there's a modern idea, and it's a good one, that you shouldn't have to walk away. I shouldn't have to leave the beach because you're such a dick. I shouldn't have to say, I can't have any fun at this party. I have to go down to McDonald's and hang out because you guys are being jerks. And so I like the idea of code of conduct and what's acceptable.
But that's the thing. What is that behavior?
That's where it gets really tough, because it's like, what is it? And it's like, can I say this? Can I say motherfucker? No, that offended this bunch of people. And can you smoke a cigar? Oh, no, we can't have that. And I don't know. Maybe that shouldn't be allowed. And maybe I'm being the dick by smoking a cigar. And everybody has their own definitions of what behavior is acceptable, as we see every single day in the world. That there's plenty of people who say this is fine. I should be able to do whatever I want.
Right.
And you see that at the beach, and it really gets difficult. I think for venues, it gets difficult for conference hosts. It's just a really tough time with that kind of stuff, and I don't know. I think it's tough to say just walk away when you don't necessarily want to walk away. I paid to be there too,
right.
and I shouldn't have to put up with that crap. But what the crap is,
but there's also a lot of different things happening at these conferences that if you don't like this particular area or village or talk or whatever, then don't go to that talk. Don't go to that village.
Well,
don't
yeah,
go
I
to
mean,
that
that's what I
event.
told somebody. It was yapping about the hack naked shirts. It was like, then don't wear one. Like, you know, okay, I don't like the color puce. I don't wear anything that color. Right. I don't know what that color is, but, you know, it just sounds bad. And,
it does sound bad.
Yeah.
What makes this hurt more?
I don't want people to get me wrong. I'm absolutely
Joe.
not condoning any of the behaviors that offended people or anything like that, right? I mean, people need to use their heads and realize the environment they're in. I mean, there is the other side of being civil and being a decent human being that folks need to remember. And I do support, highly support, a code of conduct. I think you know, the ultimate rule of don't be a dick and be nice, you know, it really is. It should be, in my opinion, all that people need to hear.
Right.
But unfortunately, today it feels like people need specific directions, and I think that's a real crying shame.
Lee?
Yeah. I was amen to what Joff just said. What really hurts for me on DerbyCon is that Dave engendered such a barrier-free, click-free environment where everybody was just like, you know, one big-ass family. And yet within that context, and it really felt excellent. It's, to me, I don't get to that many hacker conferences, but I was much more comfortable there than others I'd been in, and I really loved that. And then for people to be an absolute dick in that context, it hurts.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree, Lee.
But I mean, again, it's like if it's family, you know, and crazy old Uncle Al is the guy that whips it out at the party every year, and everybody laughs and says, "Oh, it's crazy old Uncle Al." That's okay when you got a small family, but when the family goes to the mall and Uncle Al still thinks that's a funny thing to do, it's not so cool anymore. So, I mean, I think if you want to keep those family environments, you're going to have to severely restrict who gets to come. It's going to be an invitation-only kind of thing because you're going to let it grow. It's always going to get out of control.
It depends on the behavior, and I coach people in this on relationships all the time. Sometimes you just got to take people for who they are, and obviously there's lines, and those lines get increasingly difficult to define when you add people who are coming outside the family. Like, you ever go to someone's family's house, you know, for the first time, and you're kind of like, whoa, like, and they're like, no, that's how we roll. And it's only over time that you learn to respect that.
You get used to that.
And you realize that their feelings are genuine, just, you know, how they behave sometimes.
But even families have to police themselves. I mean, and, you know, when crazy old Uncle Al gets a little crazier and decides, you know, he's going to grab
family member usually comes over and is like, okay, Uncle Al, time to go home.
Like, you're too drunk now. And, you know, and it's time to go. And
usually that's Uncle Paul.
It might be Uncle Doug, but we're not going to get into that.
Okay, Uncle Paul, Uncle Doug, time to go home.
Yeah,
put your pants back on.
That's what was happening all those years.
Hey, can we talk a bit about the positive though? I can't say enough about what Dave has done for us.
Yeah,
Dave, if you're listening, you changed my life, and I'll be forever grateful for that. You introduced me indirectly to people through your outreach, through your efforts with DerbyCon. We love you for that. And I have so many people that tell me similar stories. I mean, this has been an amazing ride, and I'm sorry that it grew out of control, but man, I really appreciate you. So that's
well, Dave, listen, don't let it get you down. I don't care what you do or how great you do it. Somebody will complain and somebody will have a problem with it. So just take the good things that came out of it and take all the good that you did for all the people that got good things out of it and revel in that and just let all the rest just slide off because, I mean, legit or illegit, it's always going to be all that
I
stuff
take from it that I was part of something that was truly positive for our community and helped people, Joff included, right? When Dave called me up, one day and said, Paul, I'm throwing a conference. I need your help. I want you to come be here. I'll accommodate you, whatever you need, but I want your help and support. I'm like, yep, come on the show. Let's talk about it. We went to DerbyCon 1. And I was like, well, this is something that we're doing every year, Dave, because that was awesome. And, it's just cool to be part of something like that. I also think that what's interesting, what I was thinking about, and I'll throw this out there for everyone, because sometimes I have a couple of drinks and I start thinking crazy things. And
then the pants come off.
And then, well, that comes later. But so what is interesting is I was like, like every September, it's usually in September, right? Every September, everyone makes plans that we're all getting on a plane and we're going to Louisville. And a lot of it was you might be speaking, you might be attending talks, you might be doing both. But really, we're all going to Louisville to network, to hang out, to catch up with people, to have a good time. I used it to build relationships, to talk with people about projects, talk with people about ways we might want to work together. For that, it was hugely valuable. And I'm like, everyone, myself included, it's like every September I go to DerbyCon. That's we plan for it every year. It doesn't matter when the date next year is. As soon as it's announced, that is on the calendar. I'm like, what if we crowdsourced it? What if we just said, like, in 2020, we're all going to show up to DerbyCon, or not DerbyCon. We're going to show up to Louisville and just hang out and talk security. And you know what? There's no organizers. Who do we complain to? I don't know. About a couple thousand of us just decided we're going to show up in Louisville. Like, that's all we know. Now, obviously, there's a lot of flaws in my theory. However,
there's a lot of flaws in your theory.
It was an idea. We could. There's some kind of blockchain technology that could. I don't know.
AI blockchain, that will solve
AI
blockchain,
blockchain
baby.
Something.
I'm going to go fire it up in the back.
AI blockchain.
Is it too late to say machine learning?
But there's got to be some way we can all vote on a date, and that's the date, and then we all show up.
Well, I mean, you can
that's what I'm thinking. Crowdsource it.
Well, I will say there have been things like that in the past in other areas where they had these like fly-in type things, and it's just like everybody said, okay, on September 15th, we'll all get together at the Marriott. Right. And that's
fine.
Don't
post on social media. We all know how to communicate with each other outside of social media. Spread it virally.
Turn it into a cult. Ban social media and say no social media. The first rule of
I watched a documentary on cults. Man.
The first rule of LCon is you don't talk about LCon.
Now I don't know whether Dave has considered this, but there is the obvious possibility that somebody else could take over the con. I'm sure he has. Volunteering. Let me be absolutely.
I think in his post he
it's too late for that now, Joff.
I think in his post he did mention that they talked with other people, they explored different options, and that their decision was that it's all good things come to an end, basically. Okay. But what I'm saying is we just crowdsource it. We all collectively agree. We pick a date, and then we all just go hang out in Louisville for a weekend. That's just what I'm saying. Then there's no one to point fingers at. Like, I don't know, a bunch of us.
That feels a lot like how B-sides probably came about.
Right? Like, yeah, we're all going to RSA anyway, and our talks didn't get accepted. So, or Black, I forget where that, which one did that start at? But anyway, we're all gonna right. It's kind of similar to B-sides. You're right, Jeff.
Right. I have to say that DerbyCon is one that I went to the first one, and I went to the second one, and then I kept going. And I plan on going this year because that gives me 100% attendance. And I enjoyed it every single time. And my career changed probably twice in that period of time. And it's been amazing.
I think that we should, this year especially, really focus on telling DerbyCon stories. Not all of them. Because they're not all appropriate for on air.
Yeah, not all of them.
Some of them might need to be sanitized. The names might need to be changed to protect the guilty and or innocent. Maybe everyone. We're going to change all the names.
Yeah.
My pinnacle, I will
has to be the horse's head, Joff. It has to be hot dogs and horse heads.
Actually, it's not. The horse head was pretty amazing, but
no, it's hot dogs and horse heads. That's the story.
My pinnacle, and you can get this on Iron Geek's site still to this day, was actually taking a customer up and talking to the audience with one of my customers. It was amazing.
Are you sure it wasn't when we were really drunk in a Mexican restaurant and we locked arms and were drinking? Oh, wait, no, that was DEF CON. Never mind.
I don't really remember that.
Could have been, I don't know which conference.
Anything could have happened.
Memory's kind of foggy.
Yeah, I'm just so glad that I only attended 6, 7, and 8. I'm really glad I did. I was trying to find a way to get there the first few years and failed 5 times.
Yeah.
But I managed to get there the last time, and sure as hell I'm getting there this year. I don't know how, but I'm doing it.
The one that I missed was the one where two of my favorite rap artists in the world were the musical act. And I don't remember why I had to miss it. It was maybe something about having a kid or something. But
Was it last year that you were you there last year? Yeah,
in 2018 I was. It was 2017.
17
was
that's
the
right.
only one that I missed due to life, essentially. And yeah, I missed Method Man and Redman. So I'm very, very sad about that. So.
Well, I think everybody will be there this year.
All of the musical groups from years past.
Yeah, oh,
maybe.
yeah.
That would be interesting.
You're gonna
I'm
everybody.
Except for
hoping
the
to be
one
able
who
to
blew 'em
attend.
off.
I don't know whether I'll submit a talk, but we'll see.
I'm struggling with that, Joff, because my 2018 DerbyCon talk was really in the style, and Doug knows this, the last lecture, right? It was kind of in that style, so I don't know how I top that, and like the fact that it is like
After
the last
Paul
lecture.
said he was gonna die.
I wasn't. No, it wasn't the. What was his name? Oh, it escapes me.
think of his name
I
either,
read
but
his
yeah,
book. It
it's
was
like
awesome.
his-
But
it's like he
it
does
was
this-
his
yeah.
literal last
Yeah,
lecture.
he was
but
like
other professors,
terminally ill, yeah.
because you're a professor, Doug, right? Other professors give their.
Randy Pausch.
Randy
Yeah,
Pausch,
that's
thank
it,
you very
that's
much.
it, yeah.
Very inspiring talk. And then
Yeah, amazing.
I was reading that and listening to that book and watching his talk while I was preparing for my DerbyCon talk, and it just like the content kind of aligned. And so I don't know that there's, in a setting of DerbyCon like that in front of the community, there's much more that I could really say that would top that, to be honest with you. So
Paul, I'll do a talk with you. Let's do it.
I take you up on that. I don't know what the topic would be, but I just tell you right now, I take you up on that.
Doesn't
John.
matter.
Let's
You
do
guys
it.
would be awesome.
We should just
it.
do. We should do a panel show.
A Security Weekly
We
panel.
should do
We'll
a
submit a Security Weekly
Security
panel.
Weekly panel show, and we'll record it, and it can be the last DerbyCon talk.
Now let's do both. Paul, I actually would like to do a talk with you, so let's do both.
Let's talk about that offline. Absolutely.
Yep.
My next topic before we got into stories, because the stories, quite frankly, really sucked this week. And that's why I padded this segment with a couple of topics that are way more interesting. I thought it was important to share our thoughts and feelings and opinions and information about DerbyCon. Because I thought it was a hoax. My last part on DerbyCon.
I thought it was a hoax.
I thought it was a hoax too.
I thought it was a hoax.
Johnny, actually, when our production engineers came to me and said, DerbyCon's canceled. I'm like, dude, that's a joke. It's a joke 100% of the time. Everyone jokes that it's canceled. It's like, no, dude, it was on their website. And then I literally checked like multiple websites, social media, and Slack channels, and I was like, oh, fuck, it wasn't a joke.
No, I announced it on Secure Digital Life, but I actually had done some research to confirm it because I thought I saw it that morning. It was like literally on Tuesday, and I was doing a show at 12:30, and I said, I'm going to make sure of this. And I actually said, can I say this? Because I'm going to look like an idiot if this is like, oh, yeah, right, DEF CON's canceled.
Right.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about some upcoming technical segments and give a little bit of a teaser and some information, as some people have been asking. In my role as CTO, I get more time to spend on the T, which is technology. And there's been a few interesting things. Matt Silva's working with us as our intern this semester, and he's been doing some amazing things. And he's really like a sponge. He's like, I just want to learn. I'm like, dude, I don't want to teach you straight security stuff, because you need to build the foundation first. And so the projects that we've been working on are both shit that I had to do and stuff that is helping Matt build the foundation. So I hope to collaborate with Matt and do a series of some of the technical segments on the technology we've been working with. Now, I'm not saying I chose the absolute perfect technology. I picked one and I went with it. So we did a monitoring service. There's some security modules. There's multiple different things. Zabbix is a monitoring, free open source monitoring software. Those of our listeners that worked with it. If you want to help us, you know where to find me. But also, we're implementing that, and not only is it monitoring things like CPU temperature, utilization, but security stuff as well. So we're looking into putting a segment together on how to configure all that, because it's a much bigger project than I thought from the get-go. But I'm realizing all this great functionality that we can have. You can monitor websites with it. Like it's really cool. So we'll do probably a few on that. And then the other thing that we've been doing is, I like to think that I get the infrastructure that runs the show to a certain point, and then that can only last so long before you have to push forward, and then opportunities present itself. So I'm working a lot with some firewalls, specifically OPN Sense, which we've covered on the show. A lot of great enhancements to that software. In fact, it has a Zabbix agent in its package manager, which was really awesome. So I hope to have a dashboard that shows me, bandwidth and utilization and all that stuff. And then the Kotom hardware has been my pick for that hardware. And I tell you what, in the past couple of years, anytime we've had network or internet issues, everyone likes, as everyone knows, we like to point to the firewall. And every time I've checked it, I'm like, it's not the firewall. I'm like, legit. And then they're like, no, it's really the firewall. And even our provider's like, no, it's really like on your end, it's the firewall. It was like my shitty network tap, right? And I got rid of that. And I'm like, oh, it's still not the firewall. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stay with the same type of hardware and software. I've got a new firewall in. It's a little beefier. We're going to swap that in. I'll show you some cool stuff that I've been able to do. I lived out my dream of load balancing and failover and load balancing of 2 internet connections. And I tell you what, in my testing so far this week, they've implemented it beautifully.
Did you go BGP though?
I did not. No, I only have a single. I have a single IP.
Totally fucking lame.
From the provider. BGP would be the way to do that, Joff. I don't disagree with you at all. However, I think a lot of us are in that situation where the network's small enough where we get static IP address assignments and some bandwidth from our provider.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
The other thing I think in these technical segments is, as I try to decrease our operating costs, being able to do all of this, what I think, listeners are going to let me know, I think on a really low budget. Really low budget.
Really low.
Right? I've been sharing with Doug. Doug's helped me in a lot of these processes. The budget's
cheap.
pretty low.
It was really impressive to see,
He's cheap.
I'm cheap motherfucker.
No, it was impressive, and the Kotom, I don't know how to say
Kotom,
it.
yeah,
the Kotom
firewall
stuff has impressed me for being such low budget type stuff. That it was. You were telling me these prices, and I was just like,
it's ridiculous.
That doesn't sound right. And then I was like, went and looked, and I was like, no, that's actually correct.
I've got some speed and duplex issues that I'm working through. I'll also share, some of the. We do have some Cisco gear, and we don't pay Cisco gear prices. So I'll share some of my hack. And I think of it as, it's really, for me, it's hacking, right? It's how can I achieve this level of network sophistication to give us what we need using open source software and really inexpensive hardware to do it. I think is really cool. I mean, I've looked at some of the alternatives. I've managed enterprise firewalls before. They cost a lot of money.
Yes, they do.
I think I can meet our requirements using a very low cost and using open source software.
Yep.
You're talking about 1 gig. That's so quaint. I actually went 10 gig at home recently.
That's awesome.
I'm all in, baby.
That's awesome. But no, your connections on the inside have to be gig at that point. Even if you're gig on the other side, I feel like your connections on the inside should be gig.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The only reason I got some 10 gig going on is that between my desktop and my server, everything's 10 gig. So, nice. And I actually ran some streaming tests after I adjusted the MTU. Now, this is actually an important
yes,
point.
It is. That's a good point.
After I adjusted the MTU to jumbo frame, I was able to get 9.86 megabit, which is gigabit, which is right up there.
That's fast.
That's maximum bandwidth.
Crazy.
Which it's kind of rocking because now I copy ISOs around the place and I don't even notice.
Yeah, it's like dragging a text file.
Yeah.
At that point.
And just incidentally, Matt's looking for a job if anybody wants to hire him. So
there you go.
Quick plug, but if you want to hire the intern,
you may have to fight me for him.
Yeah, he's good. Actually.
That's just a ploy to get in a bidding war for Matt. Help Matt out.
We'll have that live on the show.
Matt, it was funny. Matt was just telling me earlier. I'm like, so basically where I'm at now, I'm really frustrated with what we have, and I'm waiting for the new stuff to come in. I'm like, basically, Matt, we got to build all of this, and you're
rebuilding your network.
So I'm basically rebuilding the core infrastructure of my network. So I've got a new firewall, 3 new switches, and 3 essentially new access points that I'm going to configure. We're going to do tech segments on the show about it. And Matt's like, wow, I'm going to learn how to do all of this. This is fantastic. I'm like, dude, you got to know how all this is put together. if you're going to secure it, if you're going to hack it, in any case, you got to know how it's all put together.
Right.
Exactly.
So-
That's how you learn, right? Get in there, roll up your sleeves, get, break it, fix it, break it again.
Break it. I broke a lot of things in production this week.
If you don't
I think
break-
Matt was pretty horrified.
If you're not breaking stuff, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
that's
It's true.
That's
It's
the
true.
truth. I mean, when we all, it's great to be. It's a luxury though, too. I mean, it's to be
Yes.
able to do that. So
I
I've
tell
always
you
had
what,
these
when I
labs
load
and-
balance the internet connections, though, Matt and I were talking this week, I'm like, oh, wait. I'm like, we can go try that now. I'm like, because if we pull that cable out, everyone still has internet.
Well.
I'm like, wow. It
No way.
really showed me the power of having that failover capacity in how that allows you to move forward much more quickly.
Oh, yeah. Are you actually load balancing in Paul, or are you just
failover.
doing
No, it is OpenSense will do failover, and then if you set the tier, which is like their priority, to the same,
Yep.
it will do load balancing. Now, I did turn on what they call the sticky bit, right? So that in a given connection, it won't flop between two different internet connections. Because I think, and I don't know, this was just more of a gut feeling. I didn't have any specific examples, but I feel like that breaks stuff. Like I really do. I feel like I would have issues.
It does.
If I did that rightly with like the streaming stuff we do here and all that.
You don't want to do
I
that.
feel like
No,
that would cause issues.
You're right on target, Paul, because if you have asynchronous outbound packet delivery over the connections, and you don't turn on that sticky bit, basically, you're going to end up with differing TTLs on the return. You're going to end up with differing timing. You're going to end up with TCP duplicate acts.
Right? The network engineer in me just didn't get a warm fuzzy from that.
Your jitter is going to go way up if you do that. I promise.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're going to fuck yourself in short.
It could affect it could affect latency is essentially what we're saying.
It's going to jitter.
When we're streaming audio and video, super important, right?
Now, I've seen that where you think you're getting because you're adding bandwidth, you get better connection, but you actually hurt yourself because now it's jittering.
Doug and I ran into this interesting thing, and Joff and Lee and the audience will probably appreciate this. We cut over to the first iteration of load balancing multiple connections, and we were trying, and it wasn't working. And Doug and I are like, what is going on? I mean, Doug and I, we've been doing networks for a really long time, not to date ourselves, but it's a long time, right? And Doug and I are troubleshooting. I'm like, I don't understand why it's working. Like, we went through and double checked everything, and it was only because on one of my firewalls, I fired up a packet sniffer, and I didn't have Wireshark. I had TCP dump, and I had to again, it was like that moment thinking back, and all the commands are coming back to my brain, and I was running a packet sniffer. That was the only way we could determine that the reason it wasn't working, we're like, it's some kind of issue with DNS. What is going on? We don't know what it was. And then the packet capture, I'm like, I think we had this thought at the same time. We're like, is our internet provider blocking DNS servers? And Doug's like, change those to Google's DNS servers. And I did it, it friggin' worked. And I'm like, holy shit, they were blocking DNS servers. Yes. And this is on a business. But what was weird is both of the internet connections are business connections. It was blocking it on one, but not blocking it on the other. And the only way we would have come to that determination, and I firmly believe, is that I had a packet sniffer because the network doesn't lie. And I'm like, if I see responses going out and nothing's coming back, something is blocking it. And I know it's not my stuff blocking it. And then we came to that conclusion. So that, I mean, if you're getting into this field, knowing how to use those diagnostic tools, TCP dump is not necessarily a security tool. You got to understand that stuff to do it.
It's really funny you say that, because I had the same issue recently it was the other way around. I'm running my own DNS servers locally.
Yep,
and
me too.
The traffic wasn't getting to me. I'm like, the DNS query is not reaching my server.
Yep.
And I sat there and I TCP dumped it and I looked at firewall rules and did everything else. And I'm like, this is not my problem. So I called the ISP. I'm like, guys, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. And they actually came out. They're like, look, we can't do a packet capture in the middle of our network because we got, 40, 60 gig of traffic. We got to come out to your premises. I'm like, okay, fine. And the guy came out and he's like, how do I use Wireshark? So I spent like 20 minutes teaching him how to use Wireshark.
That's awesome.
Which was fantastic. And then he's like, oh shit, you're right. the DNS packet's not getting to your DNS server. I'm like, yeah, I was telling you.
Yeah, all right, been there.
Yeah. And,
Welcome to the party.
And he's like, okay. He goes, I'm going to go back and talk to the network guru. I'm like, yeah, the guy that's been sending me email that's actually giving me like show interface output from the Cisco routers.
Nice.
So yeah, we worked it out, and it turned out, and this really kind of freaked me out, the network interface device that effectively is just a bridge between fiber and Ethernet on my premises was actually trying to process the DNS packet and dropping it in the bit bucket. And I'm like, why? And they couldn't answer the question. They're like, we're just going to upgrade the firmware. I'm like, okay, upgrade the firmware. They upgraded the firmware, and suddenly my DNS packets are actually reaching me. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to ask any more questions. But I am flummoxed, and I am kind of pissed off. But I'll let it go because
sometimes that can cause more trouble than it does by upgrading the firmware.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But I had the same issue. My Zabbix agent wasn't working. I upgraded to the latest version, and magically, I think Doug, you were there when I did that, and it worked. So,
well, I mean, I was like pissed off because the guy was telling me, he's like, it's just a bridge, and I'm like, yeah, I know, it's just a bridge. I go, it shouldn't be eating the packet, right? And he's like, no, it's obviously eating the packet. I'm like. And I told him, I said, there's some shit that is wrong in your configuration. You guys need to fix it and let me know when it's done.
Right.
Right. So there's a ninja skill mixed in that story of yours, Joff, and Paul's, and that is, how do you get, when talking to your provider, from the have you tried turning it off and on again to the I know what the hell I'm talking about, and having the conversation with the right level of people.
Yeah.
I get pissed off trying to get to the right level.
Yeah.
And,
no, I just tell them. I'm kind of bold. I'm like, I've been doing network engineering for a really long time, so I already tried turning it off and on again. Like, I mean, I'll if you got all this stuff for me to try. Sure, I'm not going to dismiss, what they say, but
so I'm on Paul's page as well. When I call in a problem, I tell them, look, I've been in the industry 25 years. I've done 18 to 20 years of network engineering. I've worked with large ISPs with over 300,000 subscribers. I've actually engineered very large networks. Go ahead and escalate my ticket, and they never argue with me. They usually escalate it. So.
I do the same thing. I call them and I say, I have a PhD in computer science. I've been working on. I've been working on.
He pulls the PhD card.
Hell yeah! Yeah, that doesn't get you. And I actually don't say that. I always.
Yes, you do.
I don't.
No, you're backing off now.
No, I really don't say. I was a joke. I say the same thing as Joff. Is like I've been working on this stuff since.
How do you know someone has a PhD? Because they tell you.
I don't tell them that. If you tell them that, they won't help you at all. They figure you're an idiot.
No, when you tell them that you have a PhD, they automatically think you're an idiot.
No, I know. I tell them, look, I've been working on this since Novell was important, and
they're like, what's that?
Yeah, and I go, so see, that's how long ago that was.
They're like, is that a new app?
So please, the keyword there is not I have a PhD. The keyword is please escalate my ticket.
Yes.
I am a network engineer. And they will escalate your ticket almost always. Every now and then they go, really? Then build your own damn network and hang up on you. But most of the time they'll escalate your ticket.
Only if you encounter a complete dick, right? I mean, I normally preface it with, look, I've tried the normal steps. I've rebooted my equipment. I've rebooted your equipment. And just by the way, I've got 20 years plus experience. I do think this is a very serious technical issue. I explain it to them, and after that, as long as I'm not a dick, basically. After that, it gets
and Joff, you have to be nice about it too.
Oh, yeah.
Usually it's the point where they're like, well, hold on, why do you want an Ethernet handoff? And I'm like, well, I built my own firewall. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I ordered all the computer parts off the internet and put the operating system on. They're like, oh, okay, well, escalate now. Usually that's one of the telltale indicators, right? Like, they're like, are you sure you want an Ethernet? Like, you're sure it's not your gear?
But yeah, be polite. Don't be condescending.
Be very polite,
and try to explain that you've already done the key things.
And share with them, like Joff said. Like I showed them how to use Wireshark. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, take the opportunity. I've gotten lucky, and I'm more than happy to say it. I've got a very local incumbent ISP that has a very tight geographic area who have been very, very good to me. you know, they're not your typical monolithic ISP that tends to have that first reject kind of response, you know?
Right. And I ask them questions too, because sometimes they'll have equipment, technology, or techniques that I'm not familiar with. I'm like, well, hold on, that's coax or like, what are you using to do that? And I do that with my HVAC system, which I have a brand new system, which unfortunately is having problems, but it's got a computer board on it. And from years of troubleshooting my own HVAC, I know like it needs air in, it needs air out, it needs water in, water out, gas comes in. So I'm like, how do you check the gas pressure, the water pressure? Like, how do you know how much airflow you're getting in? And like, I'm like, what is this ignition sensor? Like, I looked that up online. Like, I can go buy a new one. Like, does that get dirty? Like, why would that fail? Like, what is that sensor? And like, I asked them, and a lot of times they show me up. Like, the guy actually just called me today, and he did some kind of advanced testing and lowered the temperature and did some other stuff too. So I'm like, I want to learn from the folks that are helping me troubleshoot the problem as well.
Absolutely, right. Yeah, you know, it's funny you say that. Another story real quick. At Black Hills, you know, I was running a generator for about 4 days after a hurricane blew through here. And my UPSs were freaking out. Like they're beeping and they're unhappy. So I went out and grabbed an advanced multimeter. I didn't have a very good multimeter. I plugged it in. It turns out the frequency coming out of the AC was at 61 hertz, which was just a little bit north of the frequency that it should have been. So I actually looked some stuff up online, went outside, adjusted the RPM of the generator down until the frequency came below 60 hertz, and all the UPSs are suddenly happy and everybody's good.
That's awesome.
And then I sent this around to the company just for giggles and grins. And I think it was Ethan that sent a message back to me. He goes, "Joff, I can't believe you, man. You are game to hack anything." And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I will hack anything. I will get in there and do whatever I need to do."
Yeah, because my installer was like, because someone else came out because he was on vacation. He's like, "So why'd the other guy look at that?" I'm like, "Oh, because I told him because I looked it up on the internet." Like that's what I thought.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like, you know, this is kind of like hacking mentality, right?
It is. Yeah.
Nothing should be off limits, right? Everything has certain parameters within which it works, and it's a matter of learning about those parameters and learning what the physicality of that device is, the electrical or the mechanical characteristics, and it's all hacking. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, like I'm to the point with my HVAC system where I'm like, just give me the model that has like a full Linux computer attached to it, because then at least like I can log in and like look at logs and shit. Like give me like it has a computer on it.
Right.
I know what all the most of the sensors are measuring. Like give me a Linux system that collects all that. And I'll do it. But he sounds like he sent some diagnostic information to the manufacturer, probably off some kind of JTAG, or there is a pinout on the board. I'm like, I wonder how that works, right? So yeah, it's all about.
Of course, on the flip side, we are the guys that end up blowing ourselves up.
It is true. It is very true, Joff. So I sometimes I had to stop myself. Like, should I really go there? I don't.
Yeah, that's when they come to your house and go, "So you didn't turn that RPM down on your generator, did you? And that's why the whole house burned up." You know,
the end of the day, the HVAC people know way more than I do about HVAC, right?
Well, yeah, I was messing with my gas furnace one time because it wouldn't work, and I called them, and they're like, "Well, we'll get somebody there in 3 to 4 days." And they're like, "Oh, I'm poking down into the guy. Don't do that. Don't do that." I was like, "What?" And he's like, "You could blow the whole house up. We'll have somebody there in about half an hour."
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, I don't know." And of course, I used that tactic forever after that.
Absolutely.
When it was out, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to lick down in there with. Let me light a match here and see if it's working."
See if it ignites. Yeah.
Yeah. A little flame blows out of there. That's not bad, right?
Oh boy.
Just light whatever flame comes out. I mean, come on.
Transitioning into a couple of stories, because like I said, they're pretty lackluster this week. The one that I probably, well, not liked because it's a heinous act and very illegal, but was kind of a wow factor for me was the two folks, I believe from the Ukraine, were charged with hacking the accompanying filings out of the SEC's Edgar system. Now, those of you that know what Edgar is, essentially what it boils down to is it's the filing system for financial disclosures such as annual and quarterly earnings reports. Now, that's really all you need to know about the story. Essentially, much of what goes behind, I know this because I'm following the stock market more closely, what much of goes behind that stock price is based on their earnings, and the market analysts are projecting the earnings, and the stock price it will go up if you meet or exceed your earnings estimation. And it will go down if you don't meet your earnings, and that's based on multiple market analysts. And as Matt Alderman was educating myself and our listeners earlier this week, that a CEO of a public company spends 20 to 30% of their time educating market analysts so that they come up with accurate earnings projections so that the company can then exceed them so that their stock price goes up. Bring us back to hacking the Edgar system. If you know before it's announced whether earnings are going to be up or down, you could illegally make a lot of money in the stock market. And when I read the story, I was like, holy shit. Now, there's no details as to how they did it.
There's tons of other stuff in Edgar as well. So
absolutely.
There's filings about insider trading, not illegal insider trading, but like when a corporate officer wants to sell shares of stock, they have to file a report. All that stuff goes into Edgar. So if you had access to Edgar and you could see all that stuff, even if it was just a half an hour or 5 minutes before the market sees it, you could jump in and do short sells, short buys, options, all kinds of stuff. And you make an absolute fortune. And because they don't know where you're getting your information, it's going to be really tough. So, yeah, this is really nasty. And you mess with the financial system, you're going to have some serious problems. You're going to have a bad day because they will come hunting you down for that kind of stuff.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad they caught them because that's
sales just or the short sells or the short buys. I mean, it depends on the direction things are going, but you can be minutes. You know, it could be 10 minutes, 20 minutes. That's all you need.
Yep.
Money can be made, but it is highly illegal.
Highly illegal. Yes.
I mean, even doing it without them. I mean, that's the old gag where somebody in the Department of Agriculture gives you a phone call because you were frat brothers or whatever, and they say, "Hey, man, I just want to let you know the price of orange juice is going to go down." And then you go make a bunch of trades. I know it's illegal, but I mean, people did stuff like that, and it's very hard to make all those connections unless somebody sees you doing it. So,
be interested in the history of the SEC. We look at these other law enforcement and governing bodies. Obviously, lots of documentaries on how I was watching one on the FBI was created, the CIA. There's been movies about it. We look at the other agencies: FCC, FTC, FDA. I kind of feel like SEC is like no joke, man. Like eventually they catch up. Like if you've seen the movies, what is it, Wolf of Wall Street and other,
they're nasty.
Like I feel like eventually they catch up.
And they hurt you. Yes. Because if they catch you doing this stuff, they can hit you with treble damages, which means that you could pay more than you took. So there's some real nasty penalties the SEC can invoke on you, and they have a lot of power. So they can definitely come looking for you, and they will. They'll come looking for you.
And absolutely they should. I mean, someone has to regulate commerce because the market, the stability of the market, I mean, as a whole depends on it.
The stability of the economy of the Western world depends on faith in the market because, I mean, if everybody decided it was rigged or something, it would be really, really bad.
And that's why this hack is really bad. It's the story that caught my eye this week for all of those. There's more than just one reason why it's interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I read probably 2 or 3 articles on that particular story, Paul, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
Now, I'm assuming there's no information on how they did it, Joff, right?
No, I don't think there's any information on how they did it. A lot of us know, if we've worked with financials, that the secret network in the back end is Swift.
Yep.
And if somebody is compromised and access to Swift is compromised along with it, then that is a serious, serious problem.
Yep.
So that's speculation, but it's not good, and that's going to be a continuing issue for us to deal with in the world. I see a lot of people air gapping in the world of Swift, but that's not always possible in all scenarios.
Let's see. Well, go through some of my stories. I was pouring wine. I'm multitasking, and I really suck at it. But
hey, careful! That you might end up pouring alcohol into your keyboard. I have a track record, so I know that.
Happens on the show, usually with beer. So they're not as interesting. 2 code execution flaws were patched in Drupal. It really wasn't that interesting, to be honest with you. I mean, the quote is some Drupal code core contrib and custom may be performing file operations on insufficiently validated user input, thereby exposing this to a vulnerability, none of that should come as a shock to those on the show.
Right.
That's
Kind of like WordPress. rinse, lather, repeat.
It's like WordPress vulnerability found. Right.
Drupal's like the sleeper kind of. Like it pops up every once in a while. But it's
heavily used.
Probably is it second to WordPress? It must be.
Well, it's
second.
a learning management system. It may be bigger than WordPress because
it uses
a back end for all these like
learning
custom
management,
high schools, universities, and all these people build these LMS systems out of Drupal as a back end, and it's a big deal. So it's in a lot of places, and it's also like WordPress, often developed by people that don't have a lot of deep skills
with PHP.
Yeah, and so people throw it together. They assign student interns to throw it together, and they and it can be a big mess. Yeah,
and they get what they pay for.
Exactly. A thing full of holes.
Well, and speaking of what you want to pay for, maybe you want to pay for 773 million passwords. However, Krebs, I thought, ran the best story on this where he kind of debunked. I mean, a lot of articles were debunking it. Krebs actually does the research to debunk it and basically point out that this breach of all these passwords is a collection of breaches which is 2 to 3 years old. Krebs takes the extra steps and goes, well, what if I were to buy it, talk to the person buying it who went on some communication protocol, Sanixer, in collection 1 is this 773 million passwords, but tried to steer him into a fresher offering. He suggested that unlike most of it, collection 1 was 2 to 3 years old. However, his other password packages, which weren't publicly available or publicized, had more than 4 terabytes and are less than a year old.
Sound like a teaser, and I heard some of those were from 2008 even. They're really old accounts that have been scraped for years.
My question is it illegal to sell password dumps if you didn't perform the actual attacks? I'm not a lawyer. I really don't know the answer to that question.
I don't know.
I was hoping someone else did. Because I didn't do the research.
I don't know. I mean, I don't, unlike saying, is it illegal to sell cocaine if you didn't buy the cocaine? I don't know if password dumps.
Someone else's password?
No, I mean, I don't know if password dumps are illegal or not.
It's not illegal. I mean, it's not a.
I guess they could treat it as.
Wait, is cocaine a Schedule 1 or Schedule 2? Is cocaine Schedule 1 or Schedule 2?
It's illegal.
It's illegal. It's one of those schedules. It's 1 or 2. It is a controlled substance.
Don't sell it. If you treated it as personal information, I think it would fall under some of the federal laws about hacking, so it could be considered illegal information.
Yeah, but what law does, we've talked about the CFAA, and that specifically calls out unauthorized access to someone else's system. If you never did that, but you got the data and you're selling, I'm sure it is. I just don't know how or what. I'm curious. I don't know. I'm curious. I'm sure it is not legal. I don't know what loopholes.
So you're bi-curious.
I am bi-curious, yes.
I don't know if you could buy it or not, or you could sell it or not. I don't know. You're sell-curious, too.
Yeah, well, but it's bisexual references aside, Doug.
I was using B-U-Y. I don't know. I don't know where the hell you're coming from.
Buying is one action. The seller and the buyer, respectively, are they violating laws? Are they both violating laws? Is it just the seller? Is it the seller and the buyer?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. I'm gonna have to think about. I'll have to do some research on that to see what the law says.
Hopefully, our listeners can chime in. Write us psw@securityweekly.com, especially if you're an attorney in this space.
Exactly.
Love to hear from you. Yes.
Get a lawyer to weigh in.
Yes. An attorney would need to weigh in on this.
I'm going to read up on that, though. That's an interesting question. It's you didn't acquire it. You just went and got it and gave it to somebody else.
I am going to guess that it's going to be context specific, and so like a lot of attorneys,
depending on the circumstances, sure,
nuanced.
The price for 0-day exploits is rising. Now, that aside, and I think the premise of this statement that it's rising is Zerodium has upped its Apple bug bounty from like $1 million to $2 million, right? That doesn't speak to, you talk about the stock market, we'll talk about the exploit market, right? That's just one stock that might be rising, how is that compared to the overall trend of the entire market in exploits, right? Now, that aside, Dan Gear's quoted in the article, and what he says is that he says I'll read the whole quote, and then I'll tell you my thought, and we can discuss. So there's no doubt that the U.S. government could openly corner the world vulnerability market. That is, we buy them all, meaning exploits, and we make them all of the exploits public. Simply announce, show us your competing bid, and we'll give you 10 times more. And you can argue with the 10 times. Bruce Schneier did and kind of question that. But anyway, so you offer them more. Maybe it's not 10 times. And there are some who will say, well, I hate Americans. I'll only sell to the Ukrainians. But because vulnerability findings is increasingly automation assisted, the seller won't know sell to the Americans. How do you know it's really the Americans, right?
Right.
And that his phones can be rediscovered by someone else who's going to sell to the Americans, also is what Dan says. Thus, his need to sell the product before it outdates is irresistible. That's a very classic Dan Gear quote, right?
Makes a lot of sense.
But to be first to market and make the money is what their motive is. Now, the issue that I have with this is I don't trust the government and expect that they wouldn't skim exploits off the top and say, well, if I'm going to have a program in an office, and likely this would be kind of like black ops kind of funded thing, right? And we won't go into my conspiracy theories about that. But anyway, however they fund it, if there's an arm of the government that's going out and buying exploits, who's to say any of the three-letter government agencies aren't like, yeah, when you get an exploit for this, you're not going to tell anyone you're going to give it right to us. You're going to buy it and give it to us. I don't trust the government enough to believe that that's not going to happen. They're not going to skim off the top,
I don't think that's a conspiracy. That makes perfect sense to me.
Why wouldn't they?
If you're a government and you have access to exploits, you would want to get hold of them and keep them as long as you could to yourself, just like they were doing.
And who's to say that doesn't exist today? Our government is likely out there buying exploits.
I would be if I was the government.
Right?
I would have a team. It wouldn't be black funding. It'd be like, okay, I want you to go out. I want you to get these before anybody else. And even if it only lasts for 3 weeks, we have 3 weeks to use this exploit to the advantage of our country.
Well, once you're in, then you can burn the exploit. It doesn't matter. It's all about Joff's technical segment as an example, being stealthy after you already got in.
Right.
That's what an exploit does.
Absolutely. So I would say they're definitely doing that stuff, and that may drive the price up. I don't know. I mean, if exploits are valuable, and governments and nation states are bidding on them. So if I've got an exploit and I say I have an exploit, and the Chinese call me and they say we'll give you $10 million for that, and the U.S. says, well, we'll give you $15 million, and the Ukrainians say, okay, how about 20? I may be able to have a nice little bidding war and sell my exploits, which would drive the price of.
And it's also not that's the demand, but supply and demand in the effect of there aren't as many exploits floating around.
The supply is falling and the demand is higher.
In the case of Zorodium with Apple, my guess is there's not as many Apple exploits floating around. Therefore, the price has gone up. And now you've got multiple buyers. My price is going up even more.
And not to mention the government's getting smarter about this stuff. I mean, yeah, they still kind of made fools of themselves asking questions of Zuckerberg, but I mean, at the same time, 5-7 years ago, you probably didn't have a senator who even knew what an zero-day exploit was.
Right.
But today, you do have people that know what that stuff is. You have people in the agencies that know what that stuff is, and they want them. And they may even want them for reasons they don't understand. Like, I just heard we need to get these things, so here's some money, go get them. And the military's after them, the government's after them, and all those agencies compete with each other. So you've got CIA, you've got NSA, you've got all these different agencies that are all competing for this kind of stuff. They don't talk to each other. They don't share information. And so the NSA may be bidding against the CIA, who's posing as the Ukrainians against the Pakistanis.
See, I love the conspiracy theory.
But I don't call it. That's not even a conspiracy. That's just how you run it. I mean, that makes sense.
It's speculation. Last week's episode was called Pure Speculation. I love that we're keeping with the theme of speculation because that's what makes the show interesting.
Yeah. We can speculate. Mass hysteria.
One of the most fun things about being a podcast host is you don't have to have facts. You just people want to hear your speculations about things, Doug. And that was a very entertaining and awesome
crazy as speculation. I'm crazy as hell, and you're going to believe me.
Wild ass theories. Lee, let's hear your wild ass theories.
While Doug's on a roll there, when is it going to be? No, seriously. When is it going to be worth it to burn that $10 million exploit? Because once you burn it, everybody knows you got it.
Yep.
It's true.
What's the bar?
That's an excellent point, though, Lee. If, let's say I'm in the Ukraine and I have an exploit that gets you into Edgar, I don't know why you'd sell that because you'd probably make more money.
I don't think you ever burn it if you're a government entity. The government
But what Lee's saying is what burned is if, let's say I find a new Windows 0 day and I sell it to the U.S. government, I'm a criminal. Even if I sign an NDA, I'm going to tell the Chinese, the Americans have this 0 day. Like, maybe I get more money from the Chinese when they come to me and they're like, I'm like, yeah, I don't have any exploits. And they're like, well, we'll give you $1 million if you tell us, like, what exploit you had and who you sold it to. I'm a criminal. I'm like, yeah, $1 million sounds good. I have no morals or values. Send me my Bitcoin. I just sold this Windows 0 day to the American.
I was just running the subcommittee here. That's what I'm laughing at. The subcommittee hearing in my head was like, son, are you telling us that you paid $15 million to Dong Slinger 69? What does this even mean?
I'm having flashbacks of the Oliver North Senate hearings, right, in today's context.
Yes, sir, we did pay Dong Slinger $15 million, but you have to understand that Dong Slinger was a reliable source at the time.
Could you please come back and explain to me again about what this crypto cider? What
cider?
The cider. That shit?
What is the cider notation that you sold? But also, hold on.
Was this on a flip or a non-flip phone?
Let's back up. I'm an evil criminal, regardless of what country that I live in or am associated with. I have a Windows 0 day or an Apple 0 day, right? I sell it to the Americans for $10 million. And I'm like, here you go, 0 day exploit. The next day, China, North Korea comes to me and say, hey, you got any Windows 0 day? And I'm like, yeah, it's $10 million. No one else has it but you. And you sell it for another $10 million.
Well, in a movie, what happens next is a Hellfire missile comes through your window and your whole building gets blown straight to hell. But in the real world, 4 years later in the congressional subcommittee hearing, they're going, are you telling us that you sold it to Dong Slinger and then Dong Slinger sold it to the Chinese at the same time? What the hell's wrong with you, sir? Yeah, but in the movie, the Hellfire missile comes through the window and it's like, yeah, that's it, but not in the real world. Yeah,
in the real world, it could be a drone strike that blows you up when you sell it to the Chinese.
If they knew who you were, but yeah.
I mean, if we're writing the Security Weekly movie plot, I want this as part of it. I think it's important to the storyline.
I think so. The Hellfire, Dong Slinger, the whole thing.
Oh, man. And that's the name of this episode, Hellfire
Dong Slingers.
Part 1.
Oh, that really got me. That was good. Yeah, episode 1.
Got to binge watch.
We should probably wrap this shit up.
I had no idea it was going to go in that direction, but I'm glad that it did because that was awesome. I wanted to say, we're not done yet, Joff. Where are you going? Go get yourself some more gin and strap into your office chair. So, my story number 6, quantum embedded chips could secure IoT. Now, this is where I was talking with Eric Cole, who was awesome before. I love Eric. He's just awesome. He's living out my dream job, man. A lot of not just mine, but I think a lot of people listening have thought about that, right? But what I was saying is, well, it's quantum encryption, so therefore it doesn't, you're good. What if I leave my key on a thumb drive that I left in my office? Doesn't matter. It's quantum encryption. No, the key still friggin' matters, right? And here's an article that I read where it is the company's announcing the world's first quantum-driven secure chip, QDSC. New acronym, must be good. on silicon, which when combined with cryptographic APIs provides highly scalable, integratable, easy to implement, and seamless end-to-end security for any connected device.
Bingo.
Holy shit detector, Batman.
So is it PC now to say then LBGQBSC? I'm confused.
I'm confused too, Joe. I don't understand what's going, how this is going to help the IO. I'm not sure this is going to fix the IoT security problem.
Well, maybe not, but if it can create shifting key patterns, so if lots and lots of keys very quickly, it means that it's harder to compromise the keys because they're constantly changing. So it's just this like flicker. So the quantum is so powerful that it can literally just create a new key just every tick. You know, I mean, just as a ridiculous exaggeration, but maybe not. What if every single packet had a different key structure and this hardware on each end, and every single device?
My limited understanding of quantum cryptography, that makes sense to me, Doug. I'll defer to you as the expert.
But yeah, I mean, so now if instead of zeros and ones, you've got zeros and ones right and left and up and down, you have this massive capability to compute, to crunch. So this crunch power means that it's very small, it's very light, it's very easy to run. So if every device has got these chips on it, and these chips create key patterns, the minute they start talking, it could encrypt itself almost at every single packet could be a separate encryption key that's been exchanged. I mean, there's some traffic stuff in there, but
does that help the problem where there's a default or backdoor credentials that get you into the device? And that's the number one problem today with IoT. So, Joff.
Wait, what the fuck planet are you on, Doug? I mean, you could create a new key every fucking millisecond, but you got to exchange the key. The other end has to know what the fucking key is, dude.
Well, no, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to solve everything. I'm just saying it's a step forward. I mean, I don't think it's the answer. And like Paul said, and like Joff said, if you can guess it, it's all about the design. So
yeah,
I mean, cut us a little slack. This is, I don't know, second bottle of wine. So I'm just saying.
I'm down in like a really dark hole, saying, what the hell kind of powers is going to take that little, and cost, that little $5 IoT thing with near zero security versus what's it going to take to drive it with this quantum encryption going? Am I going to, is it now going to cost me $50 and I'll need to triple the power supply?
Well,
it's like Moore's law plays into there too, and I think we see this with cell phones. Like, I think it's great that I can go buy a cell phone with multiple SIM cards, but what does that do to battery life? I could have a cell phone that has really advanced quantum encryption feature, whatever the feature is. How does that impact battery?
Well,
like, features have to move together, but they move in fits and starts.
My opinion right now is that quantum is just another one of those words that marketing grabbed hold of. They don't understand it. There's some weird engineers down in the lab that understand quantum.
Sure.
The marketing people don't understand it. The customers don't understand it. The customers are calling in saying, these IoT devices, are they secured? Sir, with quantum, you're good. Because we're not using just quantum, we're using quantum plus. Quantum plus neutrinos.
Plus we have next generation quantum.
That's right.
That's right. Next gen AI machine learning,
and again,
quantum plus.
The congressional subcommittee then goes, so it is quantum? Yes, sir, it is quantum. Okay, we're good then, right? Yes, sir. It's quantum. Quantum plus AI.
Does every senator or congressperson in these hearings have a southern accent?
The ones that are always asking those questions seem to.
That's incredibly racist.
No,
it's not racist. It's stereotypical.
Is it stereotypical?
You're stereotyping.
Okay, I'm just doing Trent Lott and Lindsey Graham. Sir, let me ask you something, boy. Have you ever used quantum encryption on your IoT device?
It fits the whole narrative, though.
It
with
does.
the accent. It does.
Yeah, it has to be that way.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I could do an Irish accent or something. It could be like it's Aaron Leyland on the Congress.
I go back to
hi, Aaron.
Mark Zuckerberg's obviously testimony, but if you go back, when I was growing up, the Oliver North testimony was huge headlines, and I have to say I didn't understand that when I was whatever age that was when that was going on. I knew something bad had happened. I didn't know what it was, and it wasn't until now that I read and watch documentaries and stuff that I'm like, Wow, that was really bad. Now I understand why that was such a big friggin' deal.
Yeah. But it's just funnier if the guys,
It is funnier when the questions are asked with a southern accent. I agree.
If I had suspenders, it would be even better.
In a bow tie.
And a bow tie, yeah.
Midnight in the Garden
Doug,
of Good
where
and Evil.
are your suspenders and bow tie?
I'll have them next time.
We should have. I don't think I own suspenders.
I do. I have some. They're like for my.
Well, you're a professor. That's standard issue, isn't it? Suspenders and a bow tie.
They're for my tuxedo. Yeah, right.
Along with a tweed
I've
jacket.
got a couple pairs for my tux.
I have a pipe.
I have in a pipe. Yes. We'll have to do that. An entire episode where Doug and I are in suspenders, bow ties,
and pipes.
I have several
and
pipes.
we use southern accents.
And we will not speak in southern accents.
I say, Paul, listen to me, son. IoT is not going to be the end of the damn world.
Oh, my God.
Can we end this now?
Yeah, I think we need to.
Do you got a date or somewhere? Where are you going?
I'm getting pop-up messages from the FCC right about now.
They don't regulate podcasts.
The Southern Anti-Defamation League, maybe is what that stands for.
Oh, boy.
So I had a question.
Yes, Lee.
Doug, you had one story. Did you want to talk about it?
Oh, it was the 773 million thing. Yeah, it was the same thing.
Same thing again?
Yeah, it was the same thing again. I mean, I just threw that in there because I thought, this is just much ado about nothing.
Lee, I want to ask you, do you have stories that you would like to talk about? You have 3 there in the show notes at wiki.securityweekly.com. This is, in fact, episode 590.
Yeah, I had a couple, and I was one was more of I wanted to introduce the topic just to see what you guys thought about it. And that Iowa and 5 other states are trying to use a digital driver's license. And I'm thinking, what could possibly go wrong?
I don't know, though. We said that when, was it, and what came first? Android Pay, Apple Pay, Google Pay?
Yeah.
Apple Pay was first, I think.
Apple Pay was first, and we were all like, oh, that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
However, I don't know where that ended up. I think largely it didn't see much adoption. I personally used Android Pay. Did Android and Google Pay merge? I think they merged. They're just Google Pay now. Yeah. I used that. It had some bug and it stopped working, and I just went back to using my credit card and didn't really notice that much difference. And I have like a note to go back and reconfigure that because at certain retailers, Lee, I found it convenient to use the Google Pay because I could. Yeah. Cumberland Farms was a great example. They have not implemented the chip. Not that the chip versus swipe is a argument we want to have or debate, but
no.
I found that just having my phone, putting up to the reader, they're like, "You're good. You want a receipt?" I'm like, "No, I've got it electronically on my phone. Why would I need a receipt? It's all good." I found that very convenient, but not convenient enough to put a whole lot of effort behind it. Well, and the other problem was it only supported certain credit cards still don't support those pay systems.
Well, I looked a couple of these up after I saw that story post, and the one I saw to me makes sense, and it's nothing could go wrong that couldn't already go wrong. All it really was it wasn't some attempt to do anything wacky. It was just the idea that you've got these little paper cards that you carry around with you that the police have to use to validate you. Wouldn't it be better if you just had a barcode and they could scan it when they pull you over and go, yes, he has insurance, and yes, here's what it is, and all this information was just collected. They do that anyway. They can check your driver's license now. So they've got a laptop or something in the squad car, and they type it in. They type your driver's license number in to see if it's valid or it's got warrants outstanding, all this kind of stuff. So they're essentially doing it.
Oh, you ever watch Live PD?
No, I have not.
It's like Cops, but it's live, and they go to various police units. One of them is in Warwick, Rhode Island.
Huh.
Oh. No, I've never. My wife and I watch it all the time.
But I mean, the idea that you could have this, because for years I was saying they should just switch license plates to like barcodes that they could scan with a laser. Sure. And I know there's all these privacy issues or whatever, but they can scan. They can type your license plate number in now and do that. But I know it turns into all this Black Mirror stuff. But with your driver's license, you already have to have it. So you're required to have it with you. You're required to have an proof of insurance card. And all that stuff's got massive numbers of problems associated with it as well. So it just seemed to me like it made kind of sense that if you had some kind of digital way that they could just validate it real quick, you didn't have to worry about carrying your insurance card around with you. And if you didn't have it, you're not going to get that $500 citation for not having proof of insurance, and then you have to go to court to prove it. Because I had to do that. It sucked. I had insurance, but I still had to go to court. I didn't have to pay the fine, but I had to go to court and sit there for 4 hours to go, yes, here's my insurance card. I didn't have it with me. Thanks. Sorry, I forgot it.
Well, that sucks. I never know they did that to you.
They do here, and we had to do that because I didn't have I actually had a card. It was just out of date. And then they wrote me a $500 citation and said, if you don't go prove this in court, you have to pay the $500. And
some police officer didn't get laid the night before.
It was a trainee. He was he literally told me, he was like, I'm a trainee. It's my first citation ever. So I got like a huge citation on a country road for going like 50 and a 35, and they wrote me up because my insurance card was expired. It sucked.
So he met and exceeded all of his goals.
Yeah, his supervisor was sitting in their car going, excellent job, Billy.
Good job, Billy.
I was like, thanks for doing your job. Like, oh, is that guy over there selling meth? You know,
Yeah.
like, but, hey, I didn't have an insurance card, so by God.
Right.
But I didn't have it, and it was legit. It was,
The meth dealer's going to run.
You're
speeding.
probably
not going to run.
I was speeding. I didn't have my insurance card, so I broke the law. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time, kids.
So there was a feature to the digital driver's license that I thought was cool, and then I started thinking about it and got a little uncomfortable. What they're talking about is like, Joe Random shows up at your house to perform a service, and the app on your phone, you could scan his driver's license and validate he was who he said he would be, which I thought is pretty cool.
Yeah.
You could, vet somebody, and then I thought, wait a minute, if I make the driver's license database world readable, doesn't that kind of lead to an identity theft opportunity?
Well, yeah, Lee, I think the problem is when you have a physical card that is your license and your picture is on it, that's a level of validation that today is very hard to duplicate in a digital fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in a digital fashion.
In a digital fashion, right? Like how
Right.
how do you know that that's your phone in your picture? Like you can show a picture of pictures can be modified digitally. That's hard. I don't know how you solve that problem. If someone has tried to figure that out,
Well,
I give them props for at least trying to figure that out.
You have to skip ahead to some kind of universal identity idea, which I know all the privacy stuff notwithstanding, just the universal identity idea, which does get you around a lot of this stuff. There's a way to absolutely prove who you are, and it's world accessible. There is no identity theft.
And there is security advantages to having it exist in a physical realm. I know I used to be friendly with local Secret Service representatives, and in state police. Who polices like fake licenses? Is that crosses jurisdictions, right? Depending on how
it's got to be state though.
I think it's more state. It was probably state
like
police.
State police. If you were making fake driver's licenses, state police would come. Yeah.
So maybe it was state police that I was working with, and they're telling me all this people that at a local university, they had the printer and they were all set up with all the gear to print physical devices. But that's like a barrier to entry. I feel like in the digital realm, that barrier to entry is really lowered.
No,
I don't think the barrier to entry in the physical realm is there anymore.
Nah.
I mean,
you're right.
You can buy a card printer pretty cheap, and people make that stuff all the time. And I could print a fake insurance card like nothing.
Oh, yeah, that's just a piece of paper.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. So I think that's a null argument. I think the issue is back to multi-factor. I think actually.
Yeah. No, you're right, Jeff. There needs to be a checks and balances. Agreed.
Yep. Yeah, it's got to be subdermal chips.
There you go. Barcode on your forehead.
Larry has that, man.
Boom.
Larry has a subdermal chip.
No, but we're rounding it out. But there was, and we need to find the video because I really want to watch it. And in my kitchen, we implanted an RFID chip in between the forefinger and thumb in Larry's hand.
That's where they put it. Oh, you did? Okay.
And it's an RFID chip. And I believe it's, last I checked with Larry, it's been some time since I've asked him, that was still working. And his OPSEC was
Wow.
poor. The ID on his RFID is in some video that he posted or a presentation. Or
Sweden's been doing that. You know,
Yeah.
they've been putting them in.
I was about to say, good point, Doug. I was actually in Stockholm back in November, and biohacking in Sweden is huge.
Yeah.
I'm actually going back to teach in May. It's kind of interesting how much the Swedish are getting into this.
Yeah, I mean, some of it's just like it makes sense. I mean, again, if you have to pull that privacy worry piece out of it, but I mean, just in a purely logistical sense, it makes complete total sense. I mean, it's a good thing if you eliminate the worry about, you know, Big Brother, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, if you had an absolute identity chip that, you know, that and again,
that
I
you've
know,
seen in countless science fiction movies and TV shows.
I mean, but you know, I mean, if you didn't have to worry about Apple Pay and you could just, you know, they knew who you were and it was all tied to everything. But I mean, I know there's all kinds of hacking.
Is that like a
issues with
multi-pass?
It's a multi-pass, absolutely.
It's a
by
multi-pass.
God.
Well,
Let's not
I mean,
start
what-
on Luc Besson movies.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
What did he do other
Killjoy.
than?
Luc Besson,
Yeah.
The Professional, Chalk, or something like that.
La Femme Nikita. Was he La Femme Nikita? Yeah. Okay.
Lots of movies with
Yeah.
kids.
He's a
in
brilliant
underwear.
filmmaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
No,
mean,
you don't
lots
think?
one of the
La
advantages.
No, he
Femme
is.
Nikita is one of the.
No, he makes good. He makes good.
We're really off on a tangent here. Sorry, Lee. Closing
Lee's
thoughts.
got
One of the advantages of this damn credential is when you look it up, you can brings up my picture off of the database, not off of this guy, which means if it's been fake, it's had to get all the way back into the high assurance database. But that doesn't scale really to the public. That's one of the problems.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it comes back to that security and usability.
Yep. It does.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
something's going to have to be done. I mean, it's going to get there. It's just going to take a while to where you have to shake out all the problems.
It's true.
Well, I think I think it is ultimately a multi-factor issue. I mean,
A multi-pass
I think,
issue.
I think we will
Multi-pass.
end up with some sort of device that acts as a second factor authentication that is offered as a potential transdermal implant. And I think that could be an effective solution. Upgrading and future maintenance is going to be the real issue. You know, going forward, you may end up with a multi-factor solution that works really well, but you know, 5 years down the track, we need to upgrade your transdermal implant. That's going to suck, right?
Yes.
So-
Get the tweezers.
yeah, right.
This is
True.
going to hurt.
Well, everyone, thank you for participating in this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. Doug, take us out.
Well, you know, it's been fun. So, over and out.